Okay, we're going to begin the council meeting in a couple minutes. Just heads up to council members and others.
The agenda. Thanks for the story in the paper.
I'm going to call the Henry County Council meeting of May 26, 2022 to order. If you please stand for the pledge, be led by Chad and followed by prayer, led by Harold. We have a couple of people on Zoom, and it looks like they're on. Those in council and as well as those in the public in the forum here. A couple of additions to the itinerary, at least my copy of the itinerary. After retiring Sheriff Deputies Ed Manning, I'm going to add the ARPA approval of revenues if it's not on the itinerary. Chad's going to have an assessment of Baker Tilly form update that was sent to us yesterday and shared with council members. If that didn't get on the itinerary, that's immediately following the ARPA. And then Jason Simler's on Zoom, and he'll probably have some comments about the same time Chad is. And then lastly, if it's not on the itinerary, it wasn't on my copy, at least the one I printed off. Public Defender's Office, Chad will be covering some information about that, and that'll be immediately after Ordinance 2022-7. Are there any questions, Council? So ARPA, Chad's assessment of the Baker-Tilly analysis. Jason's on Zoom to add to that information. Public defender, Chad will be talking about what was initially presented to us at our April meeting. We okay? Oh, is it on your copy? It wasn't on mine. I may have an earlier copy because there's several iterations. Just want to make sure everybody was on the same page. Council, have you had a chance to read the minutes from our April 28th meeting? If so, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Chad, seconded by Peggy. Any discussion? Corrections? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously, and Susan called, and she's on her way here. She'll be. Oh, yes, Betsy, the rule that was passed by the legislature was if you're remote, you have to be seen as well.
Right, I'm on
So,
camera.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In order to vote. It passed anyway, but from now on, thank you.
I've been on camera since I've been on, so.
Okay, and I know you're in a foreign country, so there's also about a 2-second delay, which is not bad.
Okay.
At this time, EDC update, Corey Murphy.
Good afternoon, Council. I put some documents at your, handed them to you or left them at your station. Before I get to those, a couple items not covered in the documents. There is a small business and entrepreneurship survey available on our website. We're seeking input on the opportunities and challenges of our small businesses and entrepreneurs, and we want to take that information from the survey and develop action items to improve, enhance, address challenges to our ecosystem or environment for small business growth and entrepreneurship. So growinhenry.com, it's on the main page. There's a graphic that says survey. That's going to be available for a couple weeks. We're going to push it through our social medias. It's already been in the newspaper, so we appreciate the Courier Times in promoting that. Second item is an update on READY. In working with the chief elected officials and the stakeholders, so by way of reminder, that is the president of the county council or his designee, the president of the city council or his designee, representative from the town of Knightstown, a representative from the town of Middletown, the mayor, the hospital, and the community foundation. Why those folks? Well, all of those folks basically invested in our entry fee to get into READY. So as Jennifer and I, Jennifer Fox, the other representative from the geography of Henry County, as we engage with our regional partners on how the $15 million is divided, we come back to those folks for input. Henry County received $1.6 million. The geography of Henry County received $1.6 million. That is essentially equivalent to our percentage of population within the region. Now, some counties received a little bit more, others received a little bit less. It was a regional discussion where we were all going to leave mad or were we all going to leave happy? We all left pretty happy in terms of dividing up those funds, in terms of moving regional projects forward. Of the 1.6, $1 million has been allocated towards the water project running from the town of Knightstown to north of the interchange. The other $600,000 has been distributed as follows, or allocated as follows. Nothing's been distributed, but in terms of like earmarks or allocation, $220,000 for the completion of the Wilburite Trail, which they received a $1.3 million Next Level Trails grant money. So that's around the Moreland area, so $220,000. And then $190,000 to the YMCA Child Care Capital Building Project, and $190,000 to the Knightstown Library for an ADA accessibility project. Couple comments on the two projects that received 190. They have until the end of November of this year to demonstrate a complete financing package. Not starting the project, but a complete financing package for that 190 to continue to be obligated. If a complete financing package cannot be produced by the end of November, then that 190 will come back and it'll get reallocated by those same folks that I talked about. Now to the PowerPoint that I gave you. A few of you attended our annual meeting. We appreciate it. But this was essentially scrolling at our annual meeting, and it is a look back to 2021. I want to go to the middle of the PowerPoint presentation. The rest of it you can use as a sleeping aid, or you can use it to line your litter box for your cat. About 3/4 of the way, starting with 2021 small business pandemic grants. It's in orange. Appreciate the county, your partnership. So 121 jobs were retained. This is old news, but it's old news worth repeating, right? So this happened last year. 121 jobs retained, 33 small businesses from all across the county. And the grant funds were $268,750. 250 of that came from a grant through the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. The rest of it came from a match from Henry County government, where the Board of Commissioners and the County Council appropriated funds. So thank you for your leadership and thank you for your partnership. I mentioned last night at the Commissioners meeting, see Debbie's getting to hear this again, I'm sorry, that we're asked for grants, particularly after we issued grants in 2020 with a partnership with the City of Newcastle, and 2021 with a partnership with you. Grants are now hard to come by for businesses, right? I've been doing this almost 20 years in one capacity or another, and the pandemic was really the first time in my career that I've seen grants available for-profit businesses easily obtained. Some may argue about the easy word, but so they've kind of dried up. In terms of, there are still incentive programs, but in terms of direct cash grants, not really out there. Be happy to answer any questions about anything else in the PowerPoint, but I know you have a lot on your agenda. The next item is the executive summary of C, and C stands for Senate Enrolled Act 361. This is fairly new legislation that I think the city and county should take advantage of. It allows local government to fund the attraction of out-of-state workers, whether they be remote or whether they be moving from out of state to take employment at one of our employers, Crown, TS Tech, Tom's, so on and so forth. There's a proposal in there from Make My Move. Make My Move is the platform, and based on attracting 20 to the county, the total investment would be $220,000. For easy math, if you split that half between the city and county, it's $110,000. Part of that is a hard incentive to the worker that moves here of $5,000. The rest of it is paying for the platform. If I thought we could do this on our own, I wouldn't recommend that we go with Make My Move. I don't have this expertise. And so I think it'd be well worth the investment. There is a limited, I sound like I'm doing a sales pitch here, but it's just the truth. There's a limited grant opportunity from the state that could buy down the cost of that, and that's reflected in that spreadsheet. Kenan and I went to a seminar on Monday of this week where much of this information came from. Based on feedback from the county commissioners, my way forward, or the next step, is to sit down with a representative from the commissioners, hopefully a representative from your body, and then a representative from the city. And we can talk specifically about this and see if we want to move forward. I think ARP is a good source for both the city and county to fund it initially. And then in year 2 or year 3, if we have success, I think we look at other existing funds. And candidly, I'm looking at tax increment finance. The attorney that gave the presentation indicated that many of your funds and many of the city's funds are available to be transferred or dedicated to this, but I understand those funds are already spoken for. And so I think probably the smartest approach is to pursue TIF in year 2 and year 3. But my initial ask, no action today, I'm planting seeds and kind of telling you where I'm going, is to seek an ARPA investment from both the city and county. Hopefully fast enough we can take advantage of the matching grant from the state, but really have no control over that. Questions on any of that, and then I have one more item for you.
Corey, I have a comment. Greetings from Poland. I think this is great. When I got that email from Kenan, I just thought this is really cutting edge. It's really progressive. I'm someone who works remotely, as everybody knows, but this is something that is only going to increase. And as we make our community, we raise awareness, our branding increases. This is an inexpensive place to live. I think we can really draw people here and grow our community. So I'm excited to hear more. I think it's great.
I was simply going to add, I have the pamphlet, the packet that they gave us. If any council member would like more information, I have it. I think I sent the important topics to you via email with attachments, though. But the return on investment was very impressive from those locales, either towns, cities, or counties that have invested in this so far. And IU did a study on that, and it's well worth considering and maybe prioritizing and things that we want to consider. That's my opinion after attending that workshop. And there were probably 80 to 100 individuals that attended that in Indy. So the interest around the state is great for this. So thank you for sharing and for driving.
Yeah. Any other questions before I go to the final item? Ken and I'll work through you in terms of having a representative from the county council to engage in those conversations. The final item is it's entitled, and I sent this to you via email, Business Retention and Expansion Project Summary and Recommendations for Co-Alliance Project at Mount Summit. This is an introduction of a project seeking tax abatement. The action today that I'm seeking is permission to work with the county attorney to prepare a resolution for your next meeting. And if that resolution is adopted, then there will be a public hearing and a final vote on July 28th. Standard practice in terms of publicly introducing it, giving you an opportunity to weigh in before we go down the path of creating documents. In your packet is a location, and so I've simply provided a screenshot from the GIS. The company calls it the Mount Summit location. It technically has a Newcastle address, but it is on North 3 there at the railroad tracks, and it's highlighted in yellow. The investment is $13.5 million. Current employment in Henry County is 20. This project would add 6 new full-time jobs in addition to part-time but I didn't put the part-time on here. I'm only focused on full-time. The average wage is $20 per hour, and they offer a lot of overtime. Had an opportunity to look at the benefit package for the company, and it's competitive. I might even say robust, particularly if you look at the 401k match. What are they proposing to do? And what's the competitive analysis? Little history on the organization. It is a farmer-owned organization. In other words, its board of directors are made up of member farmers. However, they pay federal, state, local taxes. In other words, they are not a not-for-profit. Some co-ops, I'm familiar with the operations of a local credit union. It pays property taxes, but it doesn't pay federal income tax. Co-Alliance pays taxes. It's just how they're governed. It dates back to the early 1920s. Many counties in the state of Indiana formed their own co-ops. Most recently, Harvest Land merged with Co-Alliance, and so the surviving organization is Co-Alliance. The proposed expansion would take place at Mount Summit location. I've already identified that on the map, and would consist of new construction and renovation to support dry and liquid fertilizer sales. The expanded and modernized location would be a distribution hub serving a 50-mile radius of its location. In terms of competition, there is another Co-Alliance-owned location outside of Henry County that is suitable for this investment and is being evaluated. Would they do it without the abatement? I don't know. But they do have another location.
Is it
that
okay
has
to
enough-
share where that's at? I know you shared it with me.
Just north of the Henry County line in Delaware County. When I say it's suitable, it has the land available to accommodate the expansion. The Tax Abatement Committee held a meeting last week. It was properly advertised and noticed. It was in executive session. We provided that documentation of notice and advertising to the auditor's office for her file. Based on that meeting, that's how we arrived at the recommendation of 3-year traditional. When I mean traditional, I mean the first year is 100%, second year 66%, third year 33%. The estimated savings over the 3 years is a little over $600,000, or about 4% of their investment. The taxes paid over those same 3 years, in years 2 and 3, are $300,000. In year 4, it's full freight. Again, the action is seeking permission to move forward with the creation of the resolution, to have a vote on June 23rd, which would then set up a public hearing at your July meeting for a final vote. Why do we have to have a public hearing? I'm glad you asked why we have to have a public hearing. We have to have a public hearing because statute requires that properties that receive tax abatement be designated an ERA. An ERA is an economic revitalization area. Property in our industrial park south of Newcastle, we've designated that an ERA already, kind of the Boy Scout or the Girl Scout model. We want to be ready so we can shorten the process. Well, this property has not been designated an ERA, so a public hearing must be held. There's another reason that I think that we should partner with this company on this project, but I'm limited to what I can say. I'm not playing games, but it's not my money and not my story to tell. We are competing for a much larger investment at a different location in our county from this company. Unrelated to this. In the millions, double the investment. I think this is a nice olive branch. I think this is good faith at a minimal investment from the county. That's why the recommendation is 3 years traditional. In our time together with the current council, you know, I've stood before you and we've done 7-year, we've done 9-year, we have done much more robust abatements because the investment was larger and the jobs were more. I think this is appropriate given the larger picture. There is a representative from the company in the room, so I told him that if I needed to phone a friend, I would, and he laughed and he said I may not come. So happy to answer any questions. Also happy to sit down because, you know, I'm well over my time limit.
Yes, you are. We timed you last night. We timed you. Right now, you're even with the commissioners' meeting. So Chad and Peggy are on your abatement committee. And the work to come up with a 3-year plan, is this the recommendation that came forth from your triad group, or?
It is.
It is. Do we have a motion to move forward? This has already passed the PC.
I will move that we move forward with Corey's recommendation.
It's been moved.
This is Betsy. I'll second.
Was that a second, Betsy?
It was. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, we
Betsy,
need,
you're still not on camera.
yeah.
I am on camera. I don't know what you guys are seeing, but my camera's not shut off. It's on.
Okay, that's part of
So
the
I would.
5,000 miles. Okay, do we have a
I
second?
know.
here?
I don't think it is. I think it's on your end, but that's okay. I know how
Okay.
Zoom
Debbie-
works.
Debbie's checking it.
I'll second it on Betsy's behalf.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Yeah, you're there. You were here before the meeting. You're back.
So you guys went on as a,
That's fine.
it has to be Betsy.
Okay, well, that's the law, so we'll abide by the law. You're on, we're not.
Hey, Joel, we get to work together again.
Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it. Chamber, we have bicentennial update. Chamber's getting busy for the ceremony and the parade, and we move sideways into an update from bicentennial, which starts full fury, I think, tomorrow. Something happens tomorrow. Yes. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. Scott Frost, Carrie Barrett.
I'm on now. Green, all right. Yes, tomorrow is the first big event. Carrie can tell you more about that when she gets up here. But the donut hole eating contest is a part of Main Street in the Bicentennial, downtown tomorrow night. We hope it doesn't rain.
Was that, I read that in the paper, I think. Was that 7 o'clock or
7:30?
Festivities start at 6.
festivities at 6? This is fourth Friday.
Donut hole eating contest will be at 7:30 for 8 minutes. And will start at 7:30.
Okay. And I think the rain's supposed to taper off tomorrow afternoon.
All right.
So we're going to keep our fingers
There you go.
and toes crossed.
Rain will taper off.
Joey Chestnut, that I've seen actually compete in person at Coney Island in New York, it is a sight to see.
Well, he has COVID, Kenan, but thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, he's not coming?
No, Joey Chestnut will not be attending. Unfortunately, he has tested positive for Conan. For COVID,
We understood.
and we're very sad, but we will have 10 other competitive eaters. We'll have the second in the world.
And they're professional
They are professional.
eaters.
Yes. Not
That is
like
a
us.
sight to behold. It's just
Yes.
Joey holds the world record, but it is a sight to behold.
Next year, next time.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we've had requests on Facebook and social media, of people wanting to join in and be a part of it, but it is sanctioned by the
MLE.
MLE.
Major League Eating.
They have their own group.
And the Coney Island event was live on ESPN.
We will, the next big event, we will be at the Memorial Day Parade. We'll have the Big Bison, which is now on wheels.
Thanks to Spiceland Wood Products.
Spiceland Wood Products, there you go, on wheels. So we'll be pulling that, and we'll be in conjunction with the Hoosier Bus and one of the cars from the Hoosier movie. I think we'll have some kids dribbling basketballs and things like that that relate to us. And we'll be passing out the flyers we gave you. And hopefully on the back is one of the important thing is to get people to register for the hoopla at the end of the month.
I went on, I did the code, and it looked like there was a charge that it said there is free, but then it asked for how many tickets. Are the tickets free, or what's the deal?
Yes, we originally had thought that we would charge $5 to make sure people show up because we need everyone to come. But we have done away with the fee, the $5 fee, and now it's free for anyone.
You can put however many people in your family is going to participate, and
Yeah,
it won't
but
come
we-
up with a charge or
Oh,
anything?
no, no.
Okay.
We hope that they all show up, though. We need 702 people.
And how many do you have currently?
Everybody asked that question.
It's around 100.
Yeah, that's true. We do have around 100.
We have 100. But
You
we're
need
just,
650 more.
There you go.
No problem.
yeah. We're just now getting we're just allowed, which it
Who's are
says,
going to come? Hold this.
it now says on the back of this, it says Guinness World Record, which we are now allowed to say.
Yes, it is a Guinness World Record attempt.
And this is co-sponsored by the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So they'll have representatives here probably.
yes. And we will have local basketball legends there as well.
This is a big deal.
We hope.
And the actual 200th anniversary is next Wednesday, June 1st. Is
There you
that
go.
correct?
That was what I was going to talk about. The next thing is the June 1st. Like you said, our actual anniversary. We turned 200 years old. We're having a birthday party downtown at the Arts Park. It's being headed up by some of the churches in town. So there'll be a worship service followed by music
And birthday cake.
and birthday cake.
And what
food
time
trucks.
is that?
What time it starts at?
5. It starts at 5 to 7:30.
Downtown Arts Park.
Arts Park.
What else do we
Then the
do?
next big thing coming up in about a week or a little over a week is the time capsule, which is right in front of the courthouse. It'll be dug up, and we will probably dig that up early in the day where we can at least get to it and then actually show it to people, open it up during the ceremonies later in the day. What, 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, yes.
And that's a big day because the Newcastle EMS is also having an open house right down the street. And the Torch Run, which is headed up by Nate Lamar's done a great job on that, will run through all 13 townships and finish up at the time capsule unburying. And also the cruise-in is also going on the same time. So it'll be a busy evening Saturday, week from Saturday.
And there's lots of other events you can see. I want to touch on Juneteenth celebration downtown here. The Middletown Lions Club Fair is having bicentennial fireworks, extra special fireworks. And we want to talk about the Guinness World Record attempt again. Please, everyone, go and sign up at Eventbrite. And also is the Hoopla Festival at the same time at the Baker Park, between Baker Park Aquatic Center and Baker Park on Main Street. So there will be bands and food trucks, and Belgian Horse Winery is coming, and
A car show.
the cruising people are going to have a big car show in the park. So there's all kinds of things to do this summer.
Did I,
This June.
did I read that you're also having food trucks the day of the parade?
The Chamber of Commerce
Chamber.
is
The Chamber of Commerce is, so there's,
along Race Street.
on Memorial Day, like over here.
I think so. Is that right? Yes.
I think they're in the, yeah. And the other thing we want to stress is we're just now starting to promote is the golf tournament on the 20th. We're trying to get 20 teams, I think, to play.
Yep.
We got a great sponsor for that. The McGowan Group Insurance is sponsoring that for us. So we're hoping to get 20 teams out at the Memorial Park Golf Course for it.
Oh, and pray for no rain the whole month of June, Well, maybe just during the weekday.
We'll pray for no rain on the days with events, which is
Yeah.
about half the days.
Yeah,
Okay. 'Cause we still need rain,
yeah, it could rain after midnight.
just not every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're entering the monsoon seasons. Council, any questions? This, like I said, bicentennials only come around every so often, like
Right.
every 200 years.
We also passed around passports. There's 30 places to visit in Henry County, and if you go to each, take a selfie there and get it stamped at a local, it'll tell you in the passport, which is powered by Duke Energy. You'll be entered for prizes, so that's what we got going on. Thank you
Well,
for allowing.
Yes, thank you for coming. I attended your booth at the farmer's market last Saturday and bought a bicentennial T-shirt, which I highly recommend. They're not overcharging. They're a very reasonable price, and they're kind of sporty. They're kind of a dark gray or gray color, which I'm kind of partial to. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
We also have the bicentennial coin, which we're selling, which,
Yes. How much is that?
50 years ago, they had $10 for the coin.
Okay.
50 years ago, they had a coin, and a lot of people said we need to do that again, so it went over well. We sold
And that's a
over-
nice looking coin. They had that at the farmer's market, which I also recommend going to the farmer's market. They have quite a few vendors, and they're starting to have a lot of nice produce and homemade goods and arts and crafts and shrubbery and plants and, oh my. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the job you've been doing the last 4 or 5 months. Okay, by law, we have to approve the ongoing abatements that have been approved by either this council or prior councils in the past. I sent those to you. They're fairly lengthy. I copied off first 3 pages of these. I'm going to move Crazy Horse Hops to the end because Chad has some comments. What we need, yes, go
I would
ahead.
also drop Family Tree because that's actually a city abatement. It's not a county abatement.
Okay. Wondering about that because I saw Newcastle on there. Okay, I need a motion and approval. If you don't have any questions on passing the Form CF-1 that's required by the state of Indiana annually for Crown equipment, the first one that's listed on your itinerary.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't do any approval process of that. That goes to the city, correct? Okay.
I think the forms come to the county for the administrative process, and some of the companies may, send them to the auditor as a courtesy.
Yes.
But in terms of approving the CF1, Crown and Family Tree are both the prerogative of the Newcastle City Council.
And we have one here for Frank Brunkhorst, which is for Boar's Head.
Yes.
Authorized representative, do I have a motion to pass the CF-1 for Frank Brunkhorst Company out of Sarasota, Florida, on behalf of Boar's Head?
So moved.
Been moved by Harold, seconded by Susan. Any discussion?
I'll only make brief discussion that Peg and I talked about these as the abatement committee, and all of the Boar's Head projects, whether they be the Frank projects or the actual Boar's Head, have done a very phenomenal job. The only one that was slightly off was the Boar's Head project for the hummus plant. But obviously, they kind of had really bad timing, but their other projects have far and exceeded their expectations, and their estimates, I should say, have far and exceeded their estimates. And so we fully supported this from an abatement committee perspective on these Boar's Head projects.
Okay, and that's the bulk of what we are considering today. So we have a motion and a second on the first Frank Brunkhorst Company LLC abatement. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Second, Boar's Head. let's just take the Boar's Head.
I was going to say, can I make a motion that we
Yes.
approve all the Boar's Head
Yes,
and
please do.
Frank Brunkhorst abatements, renew those?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded by Kyle? Was it Kyle? that Seconded, okay. I almost have to look at you to tell the voice. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the Boar's Head-related abatement forms, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you for catching that, City of Newcastle. Some of them do say the City of Newcastle, especially Crown. Yeah, and then I appreciate somebody catching that, because I did see that on that one line. Thank you. Now, Crazy Horse, Chad and I spoke just briefly about this. He has some comments and thoughts.
So again, my fellow member on my abatement committee and I met and discussed this. This is something I brought up last year with Crazy Horse, that they are falling well under their estimate. This project was started in November of 17, was completed in March of 20. At the time, they estimated 58 positions with a total paid out salary of $1,740,000. This year, they actually have 30 positions, and they're only paying out $203,000. So in talks with PEG, the committee is recommending that we do not renew this abatement. They have 2 additional years left on their abatement that runs through 2024. I've also spoken with the County Attorney, Joel Harvey. Obviously, since this is an abatement that was done through a public hearing, it's a similar process to remove the abatement. We're required to do a public hearing. And in that public hearing, of course, Crazy Horse has the opportunity to come and speak as well on keeping the abatement. The final 2 years of the abatement are, a minimal amount of, percentage-wise that they receive. So, we were talking 29% and 14% respectively. So, it's just, this is something that's never easy to do. But I also think this body has a due diligence to ensure that when we award these abatements, that they're taken seriously, and we are seeing the return on the investment that's promised. So I will make a motion that we deny renewing this abatement.
That motion's
Chad, can
been
I ask you a
made.
question?
Could you wait until we get a first and a second, then
Sure.
during discussion? Okay,
Sure.
thank you, Betsy. It's been moved that we reject this particular abatement request. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Peggy? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now, any discussion?
Sure. Chad, my question is, so you said March of 2020 was when they started?
No, the project started in November of 2017. According to their document that they provided, it completed in March of 2020. Their project was fully built in March of 2020.
Right. So I guess my first thought is that's exactly when COVID hit the country. And I'm wondering, have they been impacted by that? Do we have any information if they made the argument that COVID has impacted their ability to be, more profitable?
Again, it's a valid question, and I'm certain that's going to be a comment that'll be made. However, COVID affected every single abatement we looked at, and it didn't affect this one. This one was affected tremendously, and it took a huge impact to them. And honestly, the few years that I researched back in the early years, they weren't even coming close to their obligations then either.
I have a question. So are we voting to deny or to not approve today and wait for the public hearing? And then we can decide after we hear from their representative?
Yes, so we have an obligation every year as the council to renew the abatements on an annual basis. And if this motion passes, then we're saying we're opting to not renew, and we'll take a final vote after the public hearing.
What they've done and why it's happened, and if there have been factors beyond their control. But you have to make those two findings in order to finally revoke the abatement.
So from a legal perspective, what Chad said, you agree with that?
I do, yeah.
That
I
would be
mean,
the
it's a process where they have an opportunity to come in and be heard and explain why they haven't.
Is there a timeline or a deadline or within a reasonable time period that hearing has to be set up?
I believe it's at the next regular meeting is when it has to be. So I believe it'll be at our next meeting.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? We have a motion and a second. If there is none, all in favor of not approving this abatement at this particular time, aye?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, Kyle was a nay. What was yours again, Betsy? Was yours an aye or a nay?
I voted aye.
Okay. That motion passes 6-1. Do you or who notify the company? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. That concludes the CF-1 abatement forms and process. Job classification update, Chad.
So fortunately, we did have a quorum today, so we were able to meet. So again, I will throw my plug out there. We're desperately needing 2 additional employees to join the committee. Thankfully, somebody phoned in or Zoomed in from Poland, and we were able to have a meeting. So please, if any department heads that are in the room, if any of your employees are interested at all, please have them reach out to me. We're desperately needing to add the 2 employee appointees on that committee. Okay, so we had 4 items on our agenda, and I'll go through them real quickly here. The first item on our agenda was presented by Henry County EMS. EMS is requesting to add a billing clerk / dispatcher position. This position will be budgeted for 28 hours a week at $15.50 per hour with an annual budget of just over $22,500. The EMS is still financially in very sound shape. They are growing. Matter of fact, we were told that they're to the point they're just right at the brink of even adding additional hours because of the need. Their budget was still over $200,000 in their fund. So this would have 0 impact to the county general. It would all come out of EMS's budget. And so the committee voted, and they recommend unanimously to approve the request from EMS. So I will go ahead and make a motion that we approve that EMS add a billing clerk / dispatch at a budgeted amount of $22,568 annually, which works out to 28 hours per week, $15.50 per hour.
Second.
It's been moved, and who seconded, Betsy?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we add a billing clerk / dispatcher for the amount that Chad stated from the job classification. Any discussion? It's $22,568. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? passes unanimously. I believe you had another one, Chad.
I have several, but I just want to add, still kudos to the EMS. They've done a phenomenal job, and I think surprised us, frankly, so phenomenal. Really appreciate your hard work. Second on the agenda was the park. So as I'm sure everyone is aware, the park does not currently have a superintendent. The secretary is acting in the role of superintendent and is such being called the acting superintendent. The park board came with a request. There was some talk amongst us, and unfortunately, the exact request they had we cannot do because of the way the county pays as a class system. What was eventually motioned and voted on was to, which we have a precedent set in the past of doing this, paying the current acting superintendent who actually holds the job of park secretary, the wages of the superintendent, which is $41,000 and change. I don't have the exact number here. And that would be for a period of 90 days, beginning effective May 1st. So they will only retro it back to May 1st. And the reasoning behind that is because that's when her probationary period was over. So the HR department spoke up and felt like that was the proper procedure to do. So they will, it was voted unanimously to pass that we recommend the park secretary acting as the acting superintendent to be paid the superintendent's wages for 90 days starting on May 1st.
Okay, and there is precedent for that. I do recall both superintendent and the zoning.
So
area.
I will make a motion that we approve that mouthful. And I can get with Debbie and Bobby to go through the numbers again if we need to.
Okay, it was roughly 41,000, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
what Ann said.
90 days starting May 1st. A motion's been made for this position of secretary's acting superintendent to be paid retro to May 1st as the superintendent would be. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Susan. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? I need a delay. Passes unanimously.
Okay, next on the agenda was the 911, E911 director came. So there's a position there, and Butch can describe this much more eloquently than I do, but it's the IDACS coordinator position. They have a slew of responsibilities. He provided a document from the state police where I believe they had 58 responsibilities that fall under their category. Some counties actually have a standalone position that does this. In our county, it falls under the 911 director, and one of his staff have been doing this position. It was sent over to Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy for a review. They found that they recommend that we do an add-on stipend because of the additional work that this person is doing above and beyond their daily work that they have in their job class, which is not uncommon. We have several of those in the county for certified employees, for on-call employees, so we definitely have a precedent to do that. It was recommended by the director. We do a $1,500 annual, one time annually is the way that these are paid, $1,500 stipend to this employee who's also going to be the acting IDAC coordinator. It was voted and unanimously approved. So I will make the motion that we approve this IDAC coordinator to receive a $1,500 annual stipend paid one time a year. Towards the end of the year is when I think they normally pay them.
Okay, it's been moved for a one-time stipend paid annually for the IDAC coordinator, as per described by Chad. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Yes, and I guess I should add, this does come directly out of 911's budget. It affects the general fund in zero way.
One of those. And was it Peggy? Did you second? Okay, and it's seconded by Peggy. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay, the last thing we had on our agenda that I will just make for note, and then the council can decide to take any action, was the Highway Department came to discuss the highway superintendent's position. This was the assistant highway superintendent's position, I should say. The person who is holding this position, it was discovered a while back that they were mistakenly being paid overtime when the position is an exempt employee position, and they should not have been paid overtime. So the Highway Department requested a review of the job classification. Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy scored the job classification and came back that there was no, based on the point system, that it was properly classed. I will read a couple line items that just kind of, that was in this report. It says, as a result of the county highway engineer's work schedule, the assistant superintendent is responsible for operations of the highway department when the county engineer superintendent is in Randolph County. It also further says on the back, if the county is, factoring the position does not warrant a classification change due to the lack of educational requirements, the county is facing a compensation issue, not a classification issue. If the county would like to make a pay adjustment, the assistant superintendent position outside of the PAT 3 pay would range. It is recommended that the position be moved to an SO position job category. And they gave some dollar figures for that between $55,000 and $65,000 if the county choose to do that. So a motion was made by a member of the body to approve the SO position at $62,000. The motion failed for a lack of second. It's I will only say me personally, my concern with the committee was that, and I understand this person that is in this position does a phenomenal job. They really know their job well, but my argument was there's a room full of those people right here, right now, too. And so, that's why we pay by class. That's why we set a class. And the only time that we have historically deviated from that is those that have gotten additional educational or certification experience outside of the class. So if we start doing this, then it opens quite a Pandora's box for us to potentially have, all the employees could make the argument that they're great at their job, and we really couldn't live without them. So that's where that stands. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know Mr. Copeland's here as well that can, and I could share this Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy memorandum if anyone would like it as well.
Do you think, Chad, the motion passed not because of reclassification to SO or because of the amount of money, or is that hard to ascertain?
Well, it's hard to ascertain. I will tell you that I asked multiple times before we adjourned if there were any other motions or anything anyone else wanted to do. And the person who made the motion, I asked for clarity that if he wanted to do anything different, and so I don't know. I mean, I can only speak for me personally. Betsy was here. Betsy was on the committee with me as well. So my concern, which I shared, was the fact that they factored and it still came up with the same classification. And the only reason to change was if the county would like to make an adjustment because we have a compensation issue, not a classification issue. And frankly, I think we have a compensation issue with 90% of the positions in the county.
Yeah, and I concur with Chad's logic. As always, he does a good job of summarizing our meetings. This gentleman sounds well worth it and a heck of an employee, but we have a lot of people like that, and if they're not recommending reclassification, then and I think we're sort of in a tight spot here, and I feel bad about it, but it is what it is.
Any other questions or comments before I make one? As the liaison to the Highway Department, I would have liked to have seen that move to SO and maybe a $60,000 recommendation, because I see what is done, and I know the number one complaint we get as elected officials are the condition of our highways, and we don't have an evaluation system, but things are going to suffer if this decision decides to move. This is one position with the experience it would be hard to fill with equal experience and talents, but that's only my opinion, and that's what it's worth, my opinion. Anything else?
What was the salary recommendation? Was it 62?
It was 62. Mine would have been 60, which was halfway in between the Wagner, Irwin, Shealy. We are already operating a highway department that's 40% fewer staff than it was 17 years ago. So if we start this domino effect, things are going to get worse, not better. So again, that's my personal opinion, being their liaison for the council. Any other discussion?
And it's recommended that the position be moved to SO to help deal with the compensation issue? Is that my understanding?
Yes, I would. I was here, I sensed that maybe the amount was as much a concern as the reclassification. I have no issue with the reclassification, and I did hear what he said, Wagner, Irwin, Shealy said. I think Steve Dellinger and I are liaisons for that, and I think this may have detrimental effects as to improving our roads. But again, that's unproven. That's a belief system, having worked in that position as their liaison for 3 years. But it's a democracy, and that's what was decided.
Well, just to clarify, that was a recommendation, not a decision. If the council were so inclined, the council can make any decision that they would like to make by a vote and by a motion, second, and a vote. And the other only comment that I would make, and I know that because this was really a round and round thing when the engineer / superintendent went to Randolph County, we were assured at that time that there would be no changes, there would be no issues, the coverage would be the same. He had more than adequate time to take care of both counties. And here we are just a few short months later, and we're having to make a change because of that line I read. As a result of the county engineer's work schedule, an assistant superintendent is responsible for operations in the department when the county engineer superintendent is in Randolph County.
Well, I think what's changed, Chad, from my understanding, talking to them monthly, is not so much the switch to Randolph County, but the switch that it was just recently caught that an exempt person from overtime had just recently been found not to be exempt, and thus was paid overtime. And thus he's getting paid about $5,000 less than what he was last year. So.
And I'm very compassionate to that, but my other concern is we have a number of exempt employees in the county that are working what some would call overtime, but it's just their normal work schedule because they are exempt employees. They don't get that extra comp time and those things. And I try to look globally and not just at this one specific, because that's my concern. If we do that, then what are we telling the rest of our exempt employees? They'll just keep working your overtime and smile. I just don't like that. Sorry.
I understand, and I'm going to bat for the highway department because I have that information that I wanted to share with you. We had to make a final decision relating to premium pay because not everyone was happy, and that's just part of the job, and it is what it is, Susan.
So it has been reported to Wagner, Irwin, and Shields that he's doing more. He has more responsibility now because our highway engineer is not always in the office, and they still don't think that requires a reclassification.
That is correct. It still scores out at 450 PAT points, which falls in the PAT 3 category.
Okay. If there's no other discussion or motion, we'll move forward to,
I got some discussion. I think the converse of that is that if you, if you don't think you're going to be able to excel and do a good job, then just do the bare minimum to get by. That's kind of the converse as well. I think we need to take that into consideration as well.
that's probably a true statement of human nature, yes. So any other,
I would move to approve, or to move it to the SO position. Classification, excuse me.
okay, Kyle has made a motion to move the classification from the PAT current to SO position. Do we have a second? Going once, going twice. Failed from a lack of a second. Any other discussion on this topic? Because Joe might have some. Joe, you're up next.
Update for the highway. Highway paving, we're working on it. 200 South's been paved. Leonard Street off of US 40's been paved. 300 South has been paved. And he keeps working toward getting some of this paving done so we can start our chip seal program. Community crossing matching grant resurface bids. We took those, low bidder was E&B Paving at $1,530,515.60. That is for 6.7 miles. Cost per mile is $228,435 a mile. Asphalt has went up a lot.
You'd mentioned, I think, in a meeting with you that it's gone up, what, 25% or something like that, just over the past year?
It varies between manufacturer, supplier. Yeah, it's up around 20. We got another increase today from E&B, so yeah, it keeps going up. Another topic, bridge funds. We need more. We're hurting bad. I've got the funds to replace one bridge this year. Smaller bridge. It's actually 2 pipes on 200 North. Next year, 0. No money. Large culverts this year, 1. Hopefully we get it designed in time to get it done this year. Next year, I've got enough money to do maybe a medium-sized culvert, not a big one. I plan to apply for federal funding in November for bridge number 138. It's 98 feet long now. It'll be over 100 when the final design is done. Don't have money. It's on 950 East north of 350 South. It is the next recommended replacement. I hope to come back and give you a presentation on our bridge needs and our culvert needs. We've got some good-sized culverts out here between 10 and 20 feet, and there's several of them that's going to need replacement. Some need it now. And I'm going to tell you, they do fail. In another county, they had a failure earlier this year. Luckily, no one fell in. It was just under 20 feet long, concrete box. And what'll happen is they'll fail. The bridge's load limits are going to go down, and some of them may have to be closed. At this rate, I'm not sure. At this rate, I can't keep up. There's no way. It's impossible. No money. We pull in a little over $300,000 a year. Right now, if I were to replace a bridge, small bridge, and use the most economical way to do it, let's say 40 feet or less in span, I would estimate somewhere just under $300,000 compared to what we bring in, a little over 300,000. We're in trouble.
Your bridges are, you said rated by, I don't know, USI or some company comes in? Or,
SJCA, yes, they are required to do what they call load ratings, and we post them with a weight limit. Yes, sir.
and you have several from our conversations that you're pretty concerned about.
Yeah, I've
condition.
got 5 more that I have to lower the weight limit on. They're working on it now. Yeah.
Okay. I have brought up with this council before that we have the lowest Cume Bridge fund in East Central Indiana. And we need to address that probably, look into that, investigate, research, whatever, at budget hearing time. Because it will have an effect on the general fund. And in previous years, given our general fund balance, this was out of the question, but maybe we built it up to a point that it could be a legitimate discussion this year, where in the past it was probably suspect at best to rob Peter to pay Paul, but our bridges are not in good shape at all. Some of them are.
And some bridges need replacement, but here's the thing. I can go out and do a deck repair and an overlay on some of these bridges that aren't as bad and save money. It's a lot cheaper to do repair work, preventive maintenance, than it is to go in and have to replace the entire structure. So, any questions? That's all I've got.
Any questions for Joe in the Highway Department? Well, thank you. When I met with Joe earlier, well, actually, I think it was yesterday, they're using the new paver and excited about the new paver. And they've begun several miles of repaving the worst roads on the map that we shared earlier. So they're out there, weather permitting. They'll be doing quite a few more miles. I know last night, listening into the commissioners meeting, they approved, I think, about 1.5 million from Community Crossings, which is a match grant, and awarded that bid last night. So that'll likely be coming later in the season if it's like it has been historically. So that'll be about 9 miles more, I think, that'll be repaved, the wider roads in town, or in the county, I mean. Okay, Highway Department, Health Department. Angela has exciting news after I met with her last week.
We're trying to get back to business as usual, which includes catching up on some of the aftermath of the pandemic. And so we're very excited to announce a save the date, and we're calling it Live Well and Be Strong. And it is a wellness fair that is completely dedicated to mental health and substance use prevention. We are anticipating at least 50 vendors. We have a fabulous speaker who is from Boone County, and she comes because she's lost a son to an overdose, and she has become a force to be reckoned with in her area of the state. She's created a non-for-profit group that continues to help people in this situation. And the health department is partnering with Henry Community Health and the Henry County Live Coalition to put this event on. So again, it's July 21st. The doors are going to open at 5:30 at First Baptist Church. It'll be fashioned after the Affairs of the Heart, so it'll be rather familiar to everyone. And we want to make sure that it is a family-oriented event, meaning the kiddos and youth are absolutely welcome to come. We'll have things for them there as well. We're going to have an entire youth area put together for them. There will be the famous bag that we had at the Affairs of the Heart, but it'll be for our Live Well, Be Strong, and Henry Community Health is our corporate sponsor for that. So
I've heard her before. Her name's Michelle something, right? That speaker?
Mm-hmm. and I knew you were going to
It's
ask
an
me that
unusual
next.
last name, but she is dynamic. And very worthwhile coming to hear her speak, because she does speak from the heart, because she had a personal loss in her family.
She did.
And the whole topic of mental health, substance abuse, mental health these days is on everyone's mind. And I really appreciate the health department and Henry Health collaborating on putting this together. I know you've had a committee. I've been at some of your meetings, and it's being well planned, well thought out, and it should be a very well-attended event at First Baptist on July 21st.
July 21st. Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend the community to get behind this.
So, all right, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Okay.
I think that the health department, well, first of all, I saw in the Courier Times a wonderful story about your department. Fantastic job you've done during the COVID situation, and I really agree with that. And I think we ought to give the health department a well-deserved hand.
Well, I have a wonderful staff. I did not do that alone. Thank you.
Yeah, between you guys, EMS and Henry Health, that's why I'm here. So bless you.
Absolutely. Ken, and just to jump in and right on Harold's coattails, that event sounds fantastic. It sounds like exactly what our community needs right now. And it's such a blessing to have great leadership in our health department.
Thank you, Betsy. I think anyone that's been involved and have observed and been a part of it, they would echo those positive sentiments. Thank you, you and your department and your intern. I've seen his face about, I don't know how many times in the last, I forgot your name, Aaron? No? Andrew. I got the first letter right. Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Memorial Park, Rita. Casey. Tracy's my daughter. I didn't think it was the same name. Okay, Casey, tell us about Memorial Park and what's on your mind.
All right, so everything's going great. We were able to get enough pledges for the fireworks this year, 4th of July fireworks. We are good to go, and it will go on as planned, July 4th, 10 p.m. Some activities will start at noon. We've got a kid zone area with inflatables, vendors, fun stuff. But back up a little bit before that, we also had the Bark in the Park event and the Fishing Derby, June 18th and June 19th. It's part of our bicentennial celebration as well. We've got Rushville Animal Control and Henry County are both bringing. Henry County may only bring 1 or 2 animals depending on their staffing, but we'll have some pet adoptions and vendors and fun stuff around the lakes and the trails. Trying to maybe throw in a 5K dog walk as well. So, be some fun times.
Well, I know I have 2 dogs that can certainly bark, so we're only about a mile from the park, so we'll probably bring them both. That'll
That would be
add
wonderful.
some fun festivities.
Yep.
So Memorial Park's really getting into this bicentennial. I've seen on the calendar they provided earlier, you have numerous events going on that coincide with especially the month of June, but then the fireworks. How long were you soliciting monies for the fireworks? Because it didn't seem like it was a very long period of time you got the money needed.
So after we received the 2 top donations, we were like $14,700 short on Friday. By Tuesday afternoon, we had reached that goal. So community stepped up like we knew they would. We just had to get the information out there. So yeah, we're good.
If the word gets out, our community, they will support worthy causes to the nth degree. That's wonderful. To raise that much in that short a period of time speaks highly of the citizens of Henry County.
Yes.
And the
for sure.
park. Thank you for doing that.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Surveyor's office, Steve. I'm not sure the mic's on, Steve. to go off when people leave.
I've got two things to discuss with you. One of them is a continuing education that my chief deputy needs to go to for $60. I need tires for my vehicle, which is $1,605.35. I have neither in my budget for that. These cannot be taken out of the section corner fund. So that's what I'm here for today. If I got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Ken, I'm not this educated on the subject of your money market that you have. Is that an annual thing? You can't really tap that anytime. It renews annually?
It's a CD. And
It's a CD?
Yep.
Okay. So you have the money, but it's not budgeted and it's not accessible.
Yeah, that goes into the drainage funds because that's where the money comes from, so it has to stay in there. Is that right, Joel? Okay.
Okay, well, that's a question I've been asked before, so I
Okay.
thought I'd ask it because I didn't know the answer. Questions, comments?
Steve, do you happen to remember which line items those would have come out of before?
I'll have to ask her because I don't know. Is,
I could almost hear. So there was one for training, and the second one I couldn't hear, but
yeah, what did we run the oil changes and everything out of? Vehicle supplies.
vehicle supplies and training.
Were these put in your budget request last summer? I don't remember.
Yeah,
that so bad.
yeah, we haven't changed our budget request for the last 3 years.
Okay. Druthers, comments, further questions from the council?
Debbie, are you keeping track of some of these requests that we've granted for Steve, where they would have been budgeted before, but we asked him to try to use his? That's the only other one? Okay.
Right. Right. Comments, questions, motions?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve surveyor's request.
Second.
Can I ask?
Yes, go ahead.
From
Well,
where?
let's get a second first, like I did Betsy. I heard a second. Kyle seconded. Now, discussion.
So, I mean, that's my question, is from what fund?
Yeah. Did we pay the other from reclassification? How much do we have in there? Yeah.
Yeah, the sick pay thing is gonna kill us, because I think we're already out of sick pay money, and our reclassification is just about spent. So that's my concern from our position is, I don't know exactly, I don't have my budget book in front of me, that's at the house, so.
I withdraw my motion.
Yeah.
You withdraw your second? Since she withdrew.
Until we figure it out. Well, the motion isn't helpful if we don't know where it's coming from, so
Yeah,
I
we do
withdraw
need to
the
know
motion.
from where we're going to pay this. It helps.
Okay.
Reasonably speaking, Steve, how long can you go without the tires?
I can go a little bit, yeah. But the issue is I have to run 6-ply tires because where I go out in the fields, the bean stubble's like needles, and they'll ruin tires. We run 2 of them on Joe's truck the first year he had it. We went across the bean field, and we had 2 flat tires time we got back across the bean field. So you got to run 6-ply tires. When the 6-ply tires start getting small and the tread's off, it starts poking them. So that's how, you don't know when you'll get into that, but,
I'm not sure how long this is going to take her. Okay, okay. I'll tell you what, I'm going to move on, and we'll go back to this. We have a request from Sheriff McCorkle, retiree. It's Ed Manning. Effective June 17th, 2022, Ed Manning will end his tour of duty as Merit Captain of Detectives after having completed 27 years of service. Ed has requested to purchase his duty gun upon retirement for $1. I would entertain a motion to accept this request for duty gun of $1 to Ed Manning with our
I think
thanks.
that's actually the commissioners. I don't think the council has to approve that. Kenan.
Thank you. But now this body knows that we're going to thank Ed Manning, the council is, for his 27 years of service. And last night, the commissioners have agreed for his purchase of $1 as a thank you for his many years of service. And I think he's going to go over to one of the other departments in the Justice Center. But thank him for his years of service in your department. On behalf of the council, thank you. Yeah, our expenses this year in some areas have been higher than anticipated, so we do need to find out a legitimate place to fund to pay this from. Usually, council goes to reclassification. I don't see that much reclassification having been used thus far, is it?
But yeah, let's jump maybe to the next one and then.
Okay, you doing some
I
calculations?
am. I'm trying to run some numbers.
Okay. Hold on just a second. This also passed the commissioners last night, but the council has to approve the expenditure of revenues received from ARPA.
If it's okay with you, Ken, and I'd like to
Are you
make a
ready?
motion to
Okay,
approve
hold
the
on.
sick payout for Ed Manning
Paid from reclassification.
from sick pay.
Oh, from sick pay.
And
Okay.
we do have enough still for that one, yeah,
We do as of today.
correct.
And we punt come November. It's been moved to approve the expenses that Steve Russ requested and pay for it out of sick pay. No?
My motion was for Ed Manning's sick pay, to pay out of sick pay.
Oh, you went to Ed Manning. I lost the transition. Okay, I thought you were back to the other. And how much was that? I don't have that in front of me because I shuffled my papers. Okay, 10,000? Okay, it's been moved to approve that amount for Ed Manning's sick pay payout on his retirement. Do I have a second? Okay, Harold seconded it. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you again, and thank him. Are we back to, you want me to go to ARPA, or are we back to the request from Steve? Now that I've actually heard what you're talking about over there. Want to go on with ARPA, or do you want to address the Steve category?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve Steve's request to be paid out of reclassification.
Okay.
And for a total, was it 1,000? What were the tires? So for 1,600 plus the change for tires and $60 in training to be paid out of reclassification.
Okay, Susan's moved that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pay the 16,000 plus, or 1,600 plus for tires and 60 for education. For Steve Rust, any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Steve. Okay, are we ready to move on to the ARPA consideration? I want to be on the same page as the council. This is approval of expenditure of revenues received from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, known as ARPA, The County Council approves the expenditures of revenues received from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund as set forth in Exhibit A, which I'm about to read, to Resolution 2022-5-25-012, enacted by the Board of Commissioners last evening. I'm going to read the new additions from the ones that we've previously passed. This would be under Exhibit A, probably page 2 on your handout, starting with number 15. Which would be up to $25,700 for the acquisition of equipment necessary to operate a morgue in the former county jail building. Number 16, the sum of $660,433.88 for the repair and improvement of highways. The sum, Henry County Highways, the sum of $165,110.97 for the improvement and repair of buildings, ponds, infrastructure at Memorial Park, and the sum of $165,110.97 for assistance to volunteer fire departments located in Henry County and acquiring vehicle supply and equipment. Number 17, the sum of $40,000 for the cost of establishment of the Hero 911 software application for use to monitor and implement to protect persons in local school buildings. If implemented by the school corporations, that will be their local decision, and county buildings, and to provide 1 year of monitoring. And number 18, the sum of $5,000 for landscaping to the exterior of Henry County Courthouse. And my understanding from the ARPA meeting, those would be placed in temporary large pots or planters because there's going to be some dredging work around, so we don't want to permanently do that, but they'll be permanently planted after that exterior work is done to the grounds. But any questions? And we have.
And I'm only standing up here because Derek Bertram was waiting around, but he had another call he had to get to in case
I bet it's on the Hero 911.
Yeah, he's the one that started a year ago with the Hero 911, working on this, and he was going to, if there was any questions, but if you have any questions about it, I can answer as best I can. But he had to go do some other official business.
And my understanding from the ARPA meeting, that was yesterday, that he'd been working on it a year, as you said, and there was a presentation and several local school superintendents were very impressed and already expressed that they want to get involved. And what the county's done through this ARPA fund is set up the setup fee in the first year expenses only, and it'd be up to probably the school corporations or others to do the monthly or annual expense thereafter.
Yep.
But
It's
this was
79, I don't know, I can't remember if it's $79 a month or $79.99 a month monitoring. Yeah, this includes the setup fee of $650 plus the 1 year for the schools, so that then they can work on their budgets to get the rest of the funding, because it is per building. So for example, Tri-High, they only have one building. Newcastle has 7 buildings. Nicetown has 3 buildings, I believe. Blue River, 2. Shenandoah, 2. So they can, and it's so close to their budgeting as well, so that they can, it gives them another year to work on their budgeting.
And we also added yesterday the government buildings, the
Yes,
Henry County government
we're looking
buildings.
at our government buildings as well, because they have the school guard, which is actually for schools. There is another an application that is geared toward non-schools as well. So we're looking at that for
And any
this building,
employee
for the buildings.
could
here.
have that free app.
Every
and they
law
can-
enforcement officer, so let's start with the schools, because I think that is, in my mind, most critical. Every employee of the school will have the app on their phone at no charge to them. All of law enforcement. Oh, there's Derek. Come on, Derek, I'll let you speak.
So
Speak about it better than I could
like,
explain how the
if something happened like in Texas,
how it works.
any employee could call and 911 would get instant.
I could just talk about
So, what you're looking at, in the schools right now, you can mostly think, let's go through their process. So, let's say someone sees an intruder. Well, they're going to call office. Office is going to call 911. 911 is going to dispatch on-duty officers that may or may not be close to that school, right? So, with this app, it's called School Guard. It goes in conjunction with an app called Hero 911, which Hero 911 is for law enforcement officers only, all right? all of us would have Hero 911 on our phone. Well, this school guard, everyone in the school would have that on their phone. So what they would have on this app is a big button that would be an intruder button. And to fail-safe that so that you're not accidentally hitting it, what you're going to do is you're going to hit the button, and then you have to swipe, all right? What that's going to do is that is going to send out to everyone in the school telling them to lock down, that there's an intruder. Simultaneously, it's going to call 911. And at the same time, it's going to send a message out to every on-duty and off-duty officer within 25 miles, all right? So most of these schools have an officer that lives close, but they might not be on duty, and they might not hear what's going on. But with this app, and they'll get the message on Hero 911, with this app, they're going to know, and they're going to be able to respond. And it's going to come up on their phone if they're going to acknowledge it in uniform or acknowledge it in plain clothes. So we know who's responding and what is responding. And then, to do better, after they acknowledge it, it's going to show the geofence for that school, and then it's going to show a pinpoint of where the activation was in that school, okay? And let's say that the intruder is somewhere else in the school. They can send live updates to 911 telling you that they've moved somewhere else. So we all know that during these incidents, time saves lives. This is cutting out every middleman. This is going to save lives. This app, we have SROs in the school, but that's one line of defense. We need multiple lines of defense for our kids. And this is just another line of defense that is going to save our kids. And with this app, they can cut the middleman out, and we can have people responding within seconds. Again, you have people that live very close to schools. You could have people coming within seconds because they're going to get the notification even if they're off duty. And then on top of that notification, if it's not an intruder and they just need to call 911, there's a button on there for that so that they can just hit it and call 911. And they can send messages saying, you know, there's severe, you know, someone is hurt or something like that you don't have to have for an intruder. So there's the option to just call 911. Then there's a thing on there for principal push so that they can send messages out to everyone in their school, just like a group message, but off this app, like saying severe weather's coming in or something along those lines. But it's done even better than that. So when you get into a tense situation, a lot of your cognitive skills go away and you start losing some collars and stuff like that. The buttons on this is red because it's been proven that the color red does not go away. So they're going to be able to see it because they're not trained for those tense situations like we are. So this is an app that we absolutely need in the schools. This is something that is going to save lives. This is something that we can't do without.
You did as well today as you did explaining it to the ARPA meeting yesterday. Do I have a motion to approve the ARPA, including the Hero 911? It's been moved by Harold that we approve these new ARPA, approval to expenditure of these revenues from ARPA. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Peggy, second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Passes unanimously.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you both.
The only thing I came back for is to thank Officer Bertram. He has worked diligently. He first reached out to me about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, and he has diligently worked on this, getting people on board for a year. And I can't thank him enough for being as caring and diligent as he is to get this going.
Thank you for your service and your diligent work. And there was very little discussion, partially because of the situation in Texas, that we know the need and whatever we can do to expedite speed of response could very well save lives. So thank you for your work in making this happen.
Thank you so much.
I think we have Chad up again. Council, I forwarded you an update from Jason and a lady who works with him from Baker Tilly. basically a cost analysis of the general revenue bonds that we're about to consider after a brief discussion. And Jason is on Zoom to answer any questions. Go ahead, Chad, and Jason has, I think, more information because I was on a phone call to him, and he can fill in the gaps. Go ahead, Chad.
So obviously, I've reviewed this bond that was sent over by Baker Tilly. I still feel very comfortable with this. For the most part, virtually every year but next year, because of paying off some of the debt service and everything, we're going to run roughly at 145% debt service coverage, which is a very comfortable position. We could weather a storm. God forbid we have that 7, 8, 9 again and have a major drop in the revenue from food and beverage. It also provides that 145% basically equates out to around $190,000 per year, give or take, of additional revenue that would be available to this council to utilize in a form that they need to. So this not only gets all of that money distributed to all of these groups, but it also turns around and leaves the council some headroom if we have that storm, and it also leaves some cushion if there's another project that needs to come up, like the Restaurant Resiliency Fund or some of these other funds that we've had that we've used through, that we've used to grant writing funds and things. So I feel very confident in this, and I'd also be willing to answer any specific questions if anyone had any. But I know Jason's the expert, and he's in the room, so, well, virtually in the room.
Thank you, Chad. I agree with Chad and echo his sentiment. Last year, we had averaged the 5 previous years a little over 600,000 in food and beverage annually. Last year, unexpectedly, it bumped up to over 750,000, and they've reported over 236,000 just in the first 2 months of this year, which would put us well over $1 million. So it would take an unbelievable shift in the American economy, far worse than we've been experiencing lately, for this to be any concern, because it's very conservative, as we wanted to start out with. Jason, you have been very patient. Jason is here if you have any comments or if the board or the council has any questions. You on, Jason? Your mic's off.
Yeah, I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we do now. Thank you. Any comments? I don't know if you were able to hear Chad. We feel pretty comfortable. He did. I did when I read it last night with the numbers. It is very conservative, very safe, I think, for us to go about the proposal for food and beverage that we've discussed over the last 3 months. Questions for Jason? Needs to be some, because he's been here an hour and a half waiting for this.
Well, if you don't have any questions, I do have a question for the board.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the numbers, Chad did a great job of explaining the schedules and the amount that we're showing remaining. I will tell you the interest rate that I had in there was a flat 4%. I talked again yesterday, and we've been having a number of bond sales the last couple of weeks. And as you can imagine, the bond market is pretty volatile right now. Everyone's expecting continuing rate increases for at least the next 9, 12 months. And what I've found through the bond sales that we've had, actually banks have been giving better interest rates than if we were to do a competitive sale, which I typically always recommend, because I think typically you get the best results that way, because competition is good. It makes everyone kind of sharpen their pencils. But all these large underwriters, insurance companies that buys bonds such as these, they're a little skittish. So they're sharpening their pencils, but the rates are still high because they're anticipating higher rates in the future, where banks kind of have their own, internal rate of return that they go by. And it's not so much what they anticipate the market's going to do in the future. It's what the market is as of today. And because of that, I've been seeing better rates from banks. So at the advice of Ken, I reached out to Baird, who is an underwriting firm who has purchased bonds, Henry County bonds before, just to get his thoughts. And he kind of did some, very preliminary discussions to banks in Indiana, and he thinks he could get a rate of 3.9 to 3.95%. He thinks if we broaden that and do some more discussions, we can even get a better rate than that, maybe closer to 3.75%. Which I think in today's market, that would require us not going through the bond rating process. We wouldn't have to put together an official statement. We wouldn't incur the extra cost of getting a bond rating, which is anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. And if we can talk to a bank and get that rate locked in sooner, then we reduce some of that market risk between what might happen now till the end of July. And with those rates that he's quoting me, those are probably better than what I've been seeing on a competitive scale. The couple other things that he mentioned, talking to banks, we would not require debt service reserve. The bank would probably not require debt service reserve. And as you know, the debt service reserve is part of the bond proceeds are set aside in a separate account, and to provide extra security that if something were to happen and you didn't have enough revenue coming in or on hand to make the bond payment, that money's sitting there. It's good for you because if things really go bad, you have money there. It's good for the bond purchaser since there's extra some security. As Chad mentioned, it would take a lot for you not to have enough revenue coming in. So that extra $400,000 is what we're estimating. It's just kind of sitting there, not really doing a whole lot for you. So if we can get a bank not to require that, that's an extra $400,000 that you're saving. We don't have to borrow for. I've asked him to try to get the term where we can pay the bonds off sooner or refinance as quickly as possible. And he thinks he can get that at 8 years, talking to some of the banks. So everything he's telling me from what his preliminary conversations are with banks are very promising. So if you're liking everything I'm saying and would want to try to lock in something sooner, I would recommend that we reach out to Baird and contract with them to try to place this with a bank. And if they do, then the schedules that you have in front of you would look better than what we're currently showing you from his preliminary discussions with the banks.
Chad?
Yeah, Jason, I think you're absolutely right. That we should definitely look into that. That could significantly save, and it's a big deal to change that reserve. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars that just sit there that we can't even utilize or have to borrow just to sit there. So I think that's a huge savings potential as well. So yeah, absolutely, I don't see any reason from my perspective to not.
Okay, with your permission, then I will contact Baird and have them send over a contract for you to work with them to try to place these with a bank then.
Yeah, let's have everyone in the council weigh in on this. He's talking about saving quite a bit through the means that he said, and he's looking at the possibility of lowering the interest rates that are on these charts from 4%, possibly as good as 3.75, and these have only been heading upward fairly regularly over the past year, as we've heard from updated reports. So was that a motion, Chad, or would you make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to that effect.
It's been moved that we follow Jason's advice and reach out to the company that's had experience of bonding for Henry County in the past. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Peggy seconded. Any discussion? You're going to refrain? Okay, he's going to abstain as he has along with food and beverage. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6, abstain 1. Anything else, Jason? Yes, you have full permission of the council to go forward on that idea that you just shared.
Okay. No, thanks. We'll move forward on that, and I think everything that we talked about is in line with the documents that Lisa Lee at Ice Moen has prepared as well. So.
Okay, thank you for your work, your company's work, and When we spoke yesterday, I believe you said you could have a draft of the 3-year comp financial plan that you shared and provided Henry County the past 4 years, I believe, because I think it did it the year before we came on. By our June meeting, you'd at least have a draft, if not the final.
Yeah, I think we're planning on having a draft, and I believe Paige Hamstone is planning on being there in person to go over that with you.
Okay. Thank you, and thank them. Anything else for Jason before he signs off? Thank you again for your patience and your work, Jason.
Yeah, no problem. And just to make sure, so you'll go forward, I know looking at Lisa's timetable, according to that, I believe you have the bond ordinance. I didn't know if you've had a chance to look at it. If you have any questions, I don't think she's there, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that as well.
If you want to stick around, we're about to consider that. Joel?
Okay.
Yeah, and Ken, and actually, ordinance 2022-6 is the appropriation ordinance. That is one that you can't take final action on until the next meeting because a public hearing is required on the additional appropriation. So tonight, all you would need to do would be introduce 2022.6, and then 2022.7 is the actual bond ordinance that authorizes the process to begin to issue the bonds and authorizes ultimately the issuance of the bonds.
Yes, and that needs to be, both of these need a motion to proceed, I believe.
Well, 2022.6, all you can do is you can read it by title and just note for the minutes that it's been introduced. 2022.7 is the one that action could be taken on tonight.
Okay. On ordinance number 2022-6, you have a copy of it. Whereas the Henry County Council has determined to issue bonds to provide for a portion of the cost of the expansion of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, construction and expansion of child care facilities at the YMCA, improvements to historic shelter house, ponds, and roads at Memorial Park, together with all necessary appurtenances, related improvements and equipment known as a project, and the incidental expenses in connection therewith on account of the issuance of the general revenue bonds to be completed with the year in which issued, including funding the debt service reserve and premiums of municipal bond insurance and or debt service reserve surety, if necessary, and whereas a notice of public hearing on the appropriation of the proceeds of the bonds in the amount not to exceed $4,500,000 to be issued for the purpose of procuring funds to be applied on the cost of the project and incidental expenses to be incurred in connection therewith, and with the issuance and sale of the bonds, including funding the debt service reserve and premiums for municipal bond insurance and or debt service reserve surety, if necessary, was properly published in the Courier-Times and the Middletown News, and proofs of publication were presented to the county council and placed in the county's records. Now therefore be it ordained by the county council of Henry County, Indiana, that section 1, an appropriation in an amount not to exceed $4,500,000 is hereby made to be applied on the cost of the project and the incidental expenses incurred in connection therewith and on account of issuance of bonds therefore, including funding a debt service reserve and premiums for municipal bond insurance and or debt service reserve surety, if necessary, that the funds to meet said appropriation be provided out of the proceeds of the bonds in an amount not to exceed $4,500,000 theretofore authorized that said appropriation be in addition to all other appropriations provided for in the existing budget and tax levy for the current year. Section 2, the auditor is hereby authorized and directed to report and certify the additional appropriation to the Department of Local Government Finance. The ordinance shall be in full and effect from and after its passage, adopted on the 23rd day of June, which is our next meeting. And at that time, at the public hearing, this is to be considered and voted upon and signed by all of the county council. And so has it already been advertised?
It will be advertised after tonight's meeting.
Okay. The public has heard the whole enchilada.
The next ordinance is 33 pages, so you certainly don't need to read the whole thing.
Certainly not going to read the 33 pages.
It would essentially be an ordinance that authorizes the issuance of bonds for those particular projects that you've noted, being the Hall of Fame, the improvements for childcare at the YMCA, and then improvements to Memorial Park. Authorizes the issuance of bonds of up to $4.5 million with a maximum possible interest rate not to exceed 6.5% per annum.
Right, and right now we're looking at 4% maximum. So you have on your itinerary, Council Ordinance 2022-7, a brief abstract of the 33 pages. This one, I do believe we do need a motion today to proceed. Do we have a motion to accept as written the abstract of Ordinance 2022-7?
So moved.
It's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I didn't hear who seconded. Susan seconded. I need a mirror, a curved mirror, like they. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 I've learned to wait 2 seconds for Patsy and abstain, so it's passed 6, 1 abstention. Okay, thank you, Council. Public Defender's Office, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've added a conversation. Chad and I met with all 3 judges this week, and he's going to share some information. And I'll add, if I have anything pertinent to add, I'll add.
So I guess I would only start with, honestly, and so we did meet with the judges and everything, and I received a letter from Ms. Icky, so I guess I would offer her the floor for some discussion if she would like it before I because I've not had a chance to meet with her in person yet because I knew she would be here. So, and then we can discuss what the judges said. So if you have anything you would like to add outside of this, and
Yeah, please come forward and we'll start having a little bit of a Q&A probably.
Well, I wasn't prepared because nobody's ever come and spoken to me, and I didn't know this was even coming up. In fact, when I spoke with the judges, they weren't even sure what this was about. I have had conversations with Judge Crane this week. The only thing I can add to that is if you want to save money, get in the reimbursement program. Since 67 out of 92 counties are in the reimbursement program, we're missing an opportunity for 40% payback. So I think I stated that earlier, but.
Okay. So I guess I have a lot of concerns about the reimbursement program because there's a lot of uncertainty with that program because you have to meet such high standards and benchmarks, and that was my understanding from our meeting with the judges. That is why it was that's why that was never entertained as an option, because of the caseload requirements that would be there, the number of attorneys that would need to be employed, and just doing the rough math, even with the 40% reimbursement, if we met every one of those stringent benchmarks, it would still cost hundreds of thousands of dollars more per year to have that program in place for out-of-county funds.
All of these other counties are managing to do that. The Sorrell and Associates that are handling the defelony and misdemeanor caseload are handling 667 cases in 1 year with 1 lawyer, which I just discovered that in the last 24 hours, and Derek Mason from the Public Defender Commission stated, I can't remember his exact words, but something to the effect of, that's ludicrous. That's malpractice for one attorney to handle that many cases.
It's my understanding from our meeting, and again, Kenan, please correct me, but I thought there was 3 attorneys originally in that office, then 1 left, then I believe the other one left, and now they're hiring another one back in. So I don't, so there may be 1 today, but I don't know that that's going to be the case. Weren't we told just after the holiday there was another person that was anticipated to start with that office? So, and again, that's one, to be honest with you, I'm not even going to come close to touching, because that is a contract that the judges have in place, which is well outside of this body's authority to override a judge's contract. We fund it, but we have it's questionable if our executive body has the ability to override that contract. I mean, I'll leave that up to the guy sitting there in the suit. But that's something that we cannot address at all from sitting in our chairs here. That's well outside of our authority. We fund it because it's in their budget, but that's about as much influence we have on it at all. So
I left the meeting thinking that this probably wasn't, only the financial end was under our jurisdiction. If there's a change in policy, that's probably in the executive branch or the commissioners. And I did not know until our meeting with the judges that there is a public defender board or commission that needs to have input into this as well. And I don't know that that's happened yet. So I think if we took any action, I'm not sure it's under our jurisdiction. And I think we're getting the cart before the horse, because I think you have to have some interaction and feedback from the commission that works with the public defender's office. I think we'd be overstepping.
And I've had that interaction.
Yeah.
I've had them come and do a presentation to my public defender board a year ago.
Yeah, it's, unfortunately, we have limited reach in this kind of process. There are current ordinances that have been signed by past commissioners that are in place. There's contracts in place. Those are all things that are outside of our scope that we have any influence whatsoever on. All we can do is budget and fund projects. And there are way too many questions and not nearly enough answers for me to even make an educated decision as to a way to fund it. I tabled this last month. Unfortunately, I'm going to make a motion to table it again, and you can bring it back. But I would honestly recommend that it go to the commissioner's office, because I think they are going to have the ultimate lead in this process, because there is ordinances in place that establish exactly the way your department is ran, and we have zero authority to overturn those ordinances.
No, there is a policy, and they do develop policy. So I think it needs to go past your board and the commissioners first, because all we do have control over is the financial end.
So what exactly are you tabling? Because Judge Witham has told me to have somebody in place July 12th.
Well, I think you can proceed with.
So there was a standing vote by this body that if you had a current position that was on your budget, you can replace it as soon as that position becomes open, and you have paid out in cases like the vacation pay and certain stipulations like that you don't need approval to replace a position that's in the budget.
Yeah, you can proceed with that, and also with Jeff, I believe.
Yes.
So, because there's an opening, like you were
Yeah.
saying. So there's no holdup there in filling the position that's needed to be filled.
What I am tabling is these other requests, like the 40% reimbursement program and some of the other things that are in here. I feel are outside of our reach more than anything. So
Judge Crane is working with Derek Mason at the Public Defender Commission and crunching those numbers right now.
Okay, and he was part of the meeting, so I just don't think we're in a position currently to address what you're.
They'll be able to provide a presentation when they get those numbers done, hopefully very soon.
I think we would feel better after having that information.
yeah, and again, I would only recommend that you start with the commissioners, because since that ordinance is in place, that's probably going to be your best bet, is to go to them, and then that'll trickle to us at some point.
Thank you.
I'd appreciate being in the loop on that. I'm the PD liaison, so for
Please do,
conversation.
and put that request forward to Judge Witham.
Okay.
And remind him that you're the liaison for that department.
Gotcha. I'm the public defender liaison, and I would have liked to have been in the know on all of that as well.
Yeah,
so.
Chad and I were just information gathering, because we did not have any information or any history as to how it evolved into the current situation that it exists. And so that was more educational for us to even sit down with him, and it was educational. The remote workers, I think Corey did a really good job sharing that at the commissioners meeting last night. They're going to have an appointment of their commissioners to meet with someone in the city. So and I think that would include Corey and possibly somebody on this council. If you're interested, see me. If there's not interest, I would be glad to, since I've gone through and attended the workshop. But if you're interested,
Kenneth?
I would. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I would be very interested, given that I am a remote worker, and I think this is all so positive. So if I can be of assistance, I'd love to join.
You can definitely be of assistance. I have enough on my plate, so go for it. I just ask that you read over the handouts I gave you so you can get up to speed.
Absolutely, I already have. They're great.
Okay, thank you, Betsy. I appreciate your offer. Approval of the council's 2023 budget. As last year, our auditor, Debbie, has prepared that for us for our consideration. Mine is on a legal form. I think she gave you copies before the meeting to look over. We've got council salaries with the, I think, $600 raise, sick pay, longevity. On page 1 under personal services. On page 2 under professional services, I think the dues are the same as they've been in the past. Legal services of $10,000. Even though we just have one attorney, our legal services always exceed on an annual basis. She has also continued EIRPC and ARA as we continued last year. Pictometry is still in there with the amount, as I recall, and we still have the amount of $50,000 for reclassification that we tap when there's overages and requests, for a total of $285,431 for the county council 061 account.
And if you guys want changes made, we need to make them now, because once we submit this,
Well,
in the gateway, we can't go higher, we can only go down. So if you're-
there's two things that I want to bring up. One, I know that definitely myself and Councilwoman Steffendale are not going to be here next year, so there's no reason to put the longevity pay on here, because our replacements will not be receiving that for several years.
But you'll receive that because this is prior years. So when you go out in December, that's okay, that's,
You'll work it out.
yeah, you will
I was-
receive this money because it's prior years.
Okay.
We're a year behind.
Okay, I was just wanted to make sure that. The only other thing that I think we need to bring up, and whether we arm wrestle it down at budget session or not, is I'm still very concerned about the $100,000 in sick pay. We have $1 million+ in unfunded liability and sick pay right now, and that's 10 people retiring. We just paid out Ed $10,528. And 10 people out of a 300-person staff is not a whole lot.
That's true.
And we have a fair number of employees, and both the auditor and the deputy auditor, or chief deputy auditor, are concerned that we'll have enough money this year when we put $100,000 in. So if we can't go up necessarily. So I feel like, again, this is, I'm going to be gone next year, but my recommendation as the proverbial numbers guy that I've been called, I think the council should seriously look at increasing the sick pay payout, because it could get really dicey.
I do not disagree with that statement. It's been a perennial concern. Any other comments from council members?
So I think that we could raise it, and then when we actually sit down during budget, we can always bring it back down if we need to.
Now, from what Debbie said, now would be the time to adjust it, because it won't go up after we get to that point.
You always want your budget high because you can take it down, but you can't take it up.
Do we have a recommended number, 125, 150? I mean,
150 is what floated at the top of my head. I was actually going to ask Debbie and Bobby if they would like to weigh in, because they certainly have a much closer pulse than I do. But I think a 50%. I mean, keep in mind, just 2 years ago, this line item was $25,000, and it was absolutely getting annihilated. And we're going to annihilate the 100,000 this year, because that's the path we're on. We have a number of employees that are in that group that are at or approaching retirement.
Well, I don't think that 25,000 is an accurate number.
It wasn't. It was.
Numbers on the budgets years ago were not in there, we're just pulling money from other places. So it's not like a few years ago, we only had we only had to pay out $25,000. It was that money was coming.
But I think if you look back at the historical data, it was only around 50, and it's actually it's just going straight up.
It was just coming from other funds.
But it was transferred into that fund, so we see it on the budget reports.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll just go back into county general.
And Bobby, in the last 3 years, we've discovered what you just said.
Correct.
You'll get no disagreement from your comment from anybody that's been in a budget hearing over the last 3 years. So do we have a recommendation? I heard one.
I would recommend $150,000.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
I think that was a motion, and we got a second from Susan to increase the sick pay from what's on this tentative budget estimate of $100,000 to $150,000 to cover projected expenses in recent history. Do we have any discussion? If not, let's take a vote. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. We'll move that. Any other concerns or questions, comments
I'll move we approve the budget as presented.
with that change? It's been moved that we pass the budget in its current form with the addition of $50,000 to $150,000 for sick pay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've been moved and seconded by Susan. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, Debbie, for working that up for us. Stacy Guffey was here. Let's just say that we have a report that he forwarded to you recently, like within the last 20 hours. Read over that, please. He's been good at giving us monthly reports of expenses. I know that we did approve an ARPA expense for the morgue, and that went through the ARPA committee. Any questions about the coroner's report? I would suggest you address to Betsy or to Stacy Guffey. At this point, if there's nothing else on the agenda, I'd ask you to look at your, at least currently, tentatively, the first 2 weeks in August, and share possible budget dates. And that date was after talking with our auditor, when they would be available. And it looks like the first 2 weeks in August are going to be safe bets. Have you had an opportunity, council, to look at your calendars?
Are we thinking like 2 days? What days are we thinking?
Well, I'm looking for non-conflict days, but now my recollection is that we've gone 2 days over 2 weeks. In other words, a total of 4, and then we'd add a fifth one if needed. But I think it's always taken at least 4 days. We've done anything from Tuesday, Thursdays over the first week, and Tuesday, Thursdays of the second week. But it's really when everyone here is available. By looking at your calendars, I'm free on every day but the 11th, which is a Thursday of the second week.
The 4th is bad for me. That's a Thursday, the 4th.
Like Thursdays are bad. The 11th is the only day that I had bad, and Chad had the 4th bad. The Thursdays are out.
So what?
Anybody bad on Mondays? Mondays? Yeah, so we're looking at Monday the 1st of August and Monday the 8th of August. Is that okay with everybody? August 1st and August 8th, and then we need to look at dates later in the week, but not Thursday.
Yeah, I would rather do Wednesday than Friday, and I would rather have a day in between. because since I do have a day job still.
Some of you do. Right. Or an early lunch. Ours is going on 2.5. So, what do you think?
So the 1st, 3rd, 8th, and 10th, is that what we're saying?
1st, 3rd, 8th, and 10th, and on the 10th, we take an early lunch because there's a commissioners meeting. We're looking at the Monday the 1st, Wednesday the 3rd of August. Yes. And then we're looking at the following week, also Monday the 8th and Wednesday the 10th, and we'll have to take an early lunch the 10th because commissioners meeting's at 11. So we'll just take an early lunch. So
Kenan, if I remember correctly, we did like 8:30 to 4 last year. Does that seem right?
We did.
Okay, so what hours, you say Bobby, your meeting's at 10? 11 o'clock. So we could do 8:30 to 11 and then break and come back 12:30. Would that be enough cushion? 12:30 to 4? Because I think they have to be advertised timeframes.
Right.
Now, we can end early, correct, Joel? If we recess early, but we can't start early. Okay.
And we have before.
Okay.
8:30 to 4, is that what you suggested? I think that's what we've done in the past.
I think it's what we've done in the past.
I think it is. Okay, 8:30 to 4 on the 1st, the 3rd, the 8th, and we're going to make a slight modification on the 10th because of an 11 o'clock commissioners meeting, but still start at 8:30. We'll just take an early lunch. Everybody okay with that? All righty, thanks. Anything else for the good of the cause, council members?
I guess I would only circle back, and I said this in budget session last year. I think it would behoove everyone that they have a liaison to a department head to meet with their department head ahead of time before the budget, so we can kind of go through their budget, and it may streamline that process a little bit. So, because I will assume that there's going to be some big expenditures in places, some big increases in places, and I'm going to assume that we're going to have to get out the knife again and start carving, unfortunately. So,
point well taken. I would always encourage you, if you've not done so, to meet with as a liaison to your department prior, but especially heading into the budget. So, point well taken. I know last year Susan and I met with department heads, offered every department head. I found that educational and informative heading into, and I think they appreciated just that we were sitting down listening and having a Q&A, that someone cared. And I think that's the advantage of liaisons meeting fairly regularly, if not quarterly, with your department head would be nice too. I think they really appreciate that. Any other comments? Point well taken, Chad.
I have a question. Are we going to meet again in a work session to discuss wages?
Yeah, I think we always need to do that. The question would be when. Are we looking at sometime in June or July? And do we do that if we're going to meet with department heads like we did? And we've not talked about that, but I think we both found that advantageous. Or do we want to do that before or after that work session with the department heads? Because sometimes if we do it afterwards, we have the input of the department heads and some of the thoughts they bring up, and that might interplay with what we want to propose. So thoughts, I'm open to whatever you're open to.
I think that it would, I'm sorry, Chad, go ahead. I was just going to say, at the least, I think we should review what we did last year and where we are, and as a starting point.
I agree. I think we need to refine the process a little bit from last year, definitely. But I think just like we turned in our budget right here, if we have an idea of where we might actually be going before we walk into the budget session, because honestly, that's going to be day 4 discussion, or 5 potentially, as to where it lands at the end of it. But I certainly think if we have some structure put in place prior to the meeting, that makes a lot of sense.
It does. I'm open to suggestions or emails or phone calls at any time, unless you want to set up, if you think we're ready to set up some work session now, or if you want to do as we did last year. Anyone interested in having to sit down with department heads, just what would be your druthers, if anything, now? Or do we discuss this, refine this in the June meeting?
I would think we would want to start working on it at least by the beginning of July. That gives us just 4 weeks. What were you?
Well, we always say family comes first. We have always believed that. We're talking about a workshop discussing especially salaries and a process, but also possibly meeting anyone interested in meeting. Last year it was just Susan and I that met with department heads and availed ourselves, but anyone is willing and able to do that that's interested in it. I think
So
that
you just
dialogue
do-
was good.
Yeah, you just do it one day in July, is that what, to try and get them in, your workshop, or will you want to try it a couple of days?
It took 2 days to get everybody's schedule in, because some people we met on Monday if they worked on Monday. But what do you think, Susan?
I think that a discussion of wages would be before we meet with department heads, and maybe at the beginning of July, and then I think and after that you opened up times for other people, for the department heads to sign up if they wanted to talk to us, and some did and some didn't. So
Yeah, I believe it was like one of the last days in July, and
it was just the
August
week
1st.
before.
It was just a week before, and I didn't give us time to probably assimilate.
I just know the request that Bobby and I have is not to do what we did last year with salaries. We were at the very last day, at the very last second, trying to get these in. We were on a deadline. I missed dates because we were so stressed over getting the salaries in. So salaries have to be done as soon as we get budgets, because we can't drag it on.
I don't think anyone.
Strongly recommend that we use the spreadsheet from the HR department that has or the payroll department.
We will have payroll run you reports because it's right out of the
single person
system.
on there, and it will come right from the system, and there's a lot of moving parts that but yeah.
It was just stressful last year with us waiting till the very end to do salaries.
I don't think there's any intention of repeating last year.
That's good. But I can do the workshops. I mean, and really, I don't have to be here if something comes up, if you're just talking salaries. But like I said, I'm going to be at the hospital, not here.
Okay. Harold just said that he would not be here for the June meeting, but we should have a quorum unless everybody has problems or gets sick or whatever. Okay, good ideas. If you...
We turn these tables and work around a square here.
It's a rectangular, it's not a round table, but it's a big rectangular table that we do that.
I think we need to put the guys on a rotating so that you see over there too and over here too.
Oh, you mean switch seats every meeting?
No, we just need to rotate it so it goes in a circle.
We just need a lazy Susan table. Okay. Anything else before we adjourn, or I take a motion to adjourn? All good ideas. If you have anything to share, you have my phone number, you have my text, you have my email, and I'll coordinate conversations so we can plan ahead of time and not the last second.
Motion to
It's
adjourn.
midnight.
Second.
Go ahead, Betsy, before we.
I was just saying, it's midnight. It's midnight in Poland, and I've been walking around Auschwitz all day, so I'm very happy to adjourn. So,
what time is it there?
it's midnight.
Midnight. Well, thanks for hanging in there. You get the award.
It's all good. Thanks.
Come back and
I'll be
report
back in the
how-
meeting tomorrow.
How Warsaw was, Poland. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
It's been moved, seconded, adjourned.